Allahi wa barakatuh. My name is Jawad Hussain and I will be the MC for today's program. I wanted to welcome all of our guests from both the Ismaili community and the Dawoodi Bora Jamaat. Welcome to Bayt al-Ilm. We are very honored that you have joined us in this program as we celebrate the birth anniversary of our shared Imam Jafar, al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. In the interest of time, I won't say more than that for now, and we will begin our program with the recitation of Quran. But I will recite a narration that is attributed to Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. He said, "One who protects the Quran and acts upon it as well will be with the noble devoted angels on the day of judgment." This is transmitted from Usul al-Kafi. And in that vein and under that guidance from that ahadith, we will begin today's program with the recitation of Quran by Muhammad Hussain. Please welcome him up with a loud salawat. Allah.
صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وهو الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بالحق ويوم يقول كن فيكون قوله الحق وله الملك يوم ينفخ في الصور عالم الغيب والشهادة وهو الحكيم الخبير. وإذ قال إبراهيم لأبيه آزر أتتخذ أصناما آلهة إني أراك وقومك في ضلال مبين. وكذلك نري إبراهيم ملكوت السماوات والأرض وليكون من الموقنين. فلما جن عليه الليل رأى كوكبا قال هذا ربي. فلما أفل قال لا أحب الآفلين. فلما رأى القمر بازغا قال هذا ربي. فلما أفل قال لئن لم يهدني ربي لأكونن من القوم الضالين. فلما رأى الشمس بازغة قال هذا ربي هذا أكبر. فلما أفلت قال يا قوم إني بريء مما تشركون. إني وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا من المشركين. وحاجه قومه قال أتحاجوني في الله وقد هدان ولا أخاف ما تشركون به إلا أن يشاء ربي شيئا وسع ربي كل شيء علما أفلا تتذكرون. وكيف أخاف ما أشركتم ولا تخافون أنكم أشركتم بالله ما لم ينزل به عليكم سلطانا فأي الفريقين أحق بالأمن إن كنتم تعلمون الذين آمنوا ولم يلبسوا إيمانهم بظلم أولئك لهم الأمن وهم مهتدون وتلك حجتنا آتيناها إبراهيم على قومه نرفع درجات من نشاء إن ربك حكيم عليم ووهبنا له إسحاق ويعقوب كلا هدينا ونوحا هدينا من قبل ومن ذريته داود وسليمان وأيوب ويوسف وموسى وهارون وكذلك نجزي المحسنين وزكريا ويحيى وعيسى وإلياس كل من الصالحين وإسماعيل واليسع ويونس ولوطا وكلا فضلنا على العالمين ومن آبائهم وذرياتهم وإخوانهم واجتبيناهم وهديناهم إلى صراط مستقيم ذلك هدى الله يهدي به من يشاء من عباده ولو أشركوا لحبط عنهم ما كانوا يعملون صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Jazakallah for Muhammad's health and well-being and continued guidance. Please recite a loud salawat. And now I would like to invite another young member of our community, Brother Rehan Girniwala. He will be reciting some poetry in praise of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. Please welcome him with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala.
Assalamu alaikum. Today, inshallah, I'll be reciting some poetry on the 5 Bhaidani by Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat. One more loud salawat. मैं तो पंजतन का गुलाम हूँ मैं तो पंजतन का गुलाम हूँ मैं गुलाम इब्ने गुलाम हूँ मैं तो पंजतन का गुलाम हूँ मैं तो पंजतन का गुलाम हूँ मुझे इश्क है तो खुदा से है मुझे इश्क है तो रसूल से ये करम है سارا بطول کا میرے منہ سے آئے مہک سادہ جو میں نام لوں تیرا جھوم کے میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں غلام ابن غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں مجھے عشق سر وہ سمن سے ہے مجھے عشق سارے چمن سے ہے مجھے عشق ان کے وطن سے ہے مجھے عشق ان کی گلی سے ہے مجھے عشق ہے تو علی سے ہے مجھے عشق ہے تو حسن سے ہے مجھے عشق ہے تو حسین سے مجھے عشق شاہ زمن سے ہے میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں غلام ابن غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں ہوا کیسے تن سے وہ سر جدا جہاں عشق ہو وہی کربلا میری بات انہی کی بات ہے میرے سامنے وہی ذات ہے وہی جن کو شیر خدا کہے جنہیں باب صلی اللہ کہے وہی جن کو آل نبی کہے وہی جن کو ذات علی کہے وہی پختہ ہے میں تو خام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں قمر ہوں شاعر بے نوا میرے حیثیت ہی بھلا ہے کیا وہ ہے بادشاہوں کے بادشاہ میں ہوں ان کے در بس ایک گادا میرے پنجے تن سے ہے واسطہ میرا نسبتوں کا ہے سلسلہ میں فقیر خیر الانام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں غلام ابن غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں میں تو پنجے تن کا غلام ہوں محمد و محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم
Jazakallah for Rayhan's health continued success and for his continued guidance, please recite a loud salawat. Now we will have some brief youth presentations by three siblings who will give a brief presentation each on different aspects of Imam Sadiq. I will ask them all to come up and then they will present their presentations. Please welcome Sayyid, Maryam Sayyid, and Ibrahim Sayyid with a loud salawat ala Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sayyid. Along with my siblings, Maryam and Ibrahim Sayyid, we welcome you all and thank each and every one of you for joining us in celebrating the noble births of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and Imam Jafar Sadiq ﷺ. We also want to welcome our guests from the Ismaili and Bohra communities. It is indeed an honor to have you all among us at Beit Ulam today. A special thanks to Maulana Faizi for arranging this auspicious occasion. Please recite a salawat in welcoming our Ismaili and Bohra guests and Maulana Faizi for arranging it. We want to extend a special welcome to Maulana Sulayman Abidi as well. As we all know in our fiqh, the foundation of Islam is based on the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. We do not take Islam from any other source but the Quran and the noble Ahlul Bayt. That is because we've been clearly commanded by Prophet Muhammad himself in Bihar al-Anwar, volume 23, page 106, hadith number 7, and in Mizan al-Hikmah, hadith number 2365. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Verily I leave behind among you the two weighty things, which as long as you continue to adhere to, you will never go astray after me, and one of which is greater than the other. The book of Allah is the rope stretched from the heavens to the earth, and my progeny, my household. Behold, verily, they will never separate from each other until they meet at the heavenly waters." The above hadith is famously known as Hadith al-Saqilain, narrated and declared authentic by all the schools of thought in Islam. In Mizan al-Hikmah, hadith number 4323, Prophet Muhammad also commands us something unique. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Accept the truth from anyone who comes to you with it, be he lowly or noble, even if he himself is detestable to you, and reject falsehood from anyone who comes to you with it, be he lowly or noble, even if he is beloved to you." As per his command, truth must be accepted regardless of whoever is bringing it, and falsehood must be rejected no matter who brings it to you. Allah commands our Prophet in Surah Ash-Shura, chapter 42, verse 23, "Say, O Prophet, I do not ask for a reward for this message of Islam, but in return for you all to love for my Ahlul Bayt." Thus making the love of the Ahlul Bayt a part of our faith, he is clearly telling us that in return for his message of Islam from Allah, in return for the path of salvation that he taught us, Prophet Muhammad wants nothing but for us to love and honor his family. Please recite salawat to honor him and his Ahlul Bayt. In Ghurar al-Hikam, Imam Ali alayhi salam said, "Two types of people are destroyed because of me, the fanatic lover and the extreme hater." In Mizan al-Hikmah, Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam said, to one of his companions, "Verily, we are very patient, and our Shia are even more patient than us." His companion asked, "May I be your ransom? How can your Shia be more patient than yourselves?" He replied, "Because we are patient alongside our knowledge of everything, whereas our Shia are patient in spite of not knowing." Now I'd like to invite my sister Maryam Sayyid to share with us Islamic teachings about modesty. Please recite salawat and wassalam.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Maryam Sayyid, and I would like to talk about modesty in Islam. The Holy Quran says in chapter 33, verse 59, "O Prophet, tell your wives, your daughters, and believing women to make their outer garments hang low over them." Arabs before Islam would wear tight-fitting clothing, and Allah declared that type of revealing attire to be non-modest and against the character of Islam, commanding modesty for men and women both. men through lowering their gaze and women through covering up their entire bodies. In Mizan al-Hikmah, hadith number 3890, Prophet said, 4 qualities when possessed by a person cause Allah to transform his evil deeds into good deeds, even if he is sinful from head to toe. They are honesty, modesty, good character, and thankfulness. The Prophet narrates in the same book, Mizan al-Hikmah, hadith number 3027, whoever tries to be patient, Allah makes him patient, and whoever tries to remain chaste, Allah keeps him chaste, and whoever suffices himself with what he has, Allah enriches him. No servant can ever be granted something more sufficient than patience. In Ghurar al-Hikam, hadith number 2641, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, verily modesty and chastity are from characteristics of faith, and they are the traits of the free and the qualities of the virtuous. Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam narrates in hadith number 2687 in Mizan al-Hikmah, there is no faith for one who has no modesty. Now I would like to invite my brother Ibrahim Sayyid to share with us Islamic teachings about Allah's mercy. Please recite a salawat.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ibrahim Sayyid, and I would like to begin with a verse of Quran where Allah commands us, no matter what mistakes we make in life, whatever sins we commit knowingly or unknowingly, His mercy will always shield us. The Quran says in chapter 39, verse 53, never lose hope in Allah's mercy. This is a very powerful verse teaching us all that no matter how heinous our sins are, Allah's mercy has no limits. In Ghurar al-Hikam, hadith number 3851, Imam Ali alayhi salam narrates, the greatest affliction is the severance of hope. In hadith number 3878, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, just as you show mercy, mercy will be shown to you. Similarly, in hadith number 3878, Imam Ali alayhi salam said, one who shows no mercy will be shown no mercy. Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam also narrates in Mizan al-Hikmah, hadith number 2854, one who neither honors our old nor has mercy on our young is not one of us. I would like to conclude our presentations by asking Allah to show His infinite mercy upon all of us, and in the end I would like to welcome our respectable guests. Wassalam and salawat.
Jazakallah to our trio of siblings. The best of words is Kitabullah and the ahadith of the Prophet and the Imams, and they illuminated us with several ayat and with several ahadith. So for their continued success, health and well-being, please recite a very loud salawat. And now I will ask one of our respected guests to come to the podium. It is Shayk Zohair Bhai AmanatAli. Shayk AmanatAli is the president of the Anjuman-e-Saifi Dawoodi Bohra community here in Chicago, located in Willowbrook. So please welcome him to the podium with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السلام علیکم. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. اعوذ باللہ السمیع العلیم من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. الحمدللہ رب العالمین والصلاة والسلام علی رسولہ سید المرسلین وعلی وصیہ سید الوصیین وعلی الائمۃ من ذریتہم الطاہرین الطیبین وعلی اصحابہ اجمعین. اما بعد. جناب عامر مختار فیضی صاحب، جناب جاوید حسین صاحب، چیئرمین آف ڈائریکٹرز، میرے عزیز برادران ملت، داؤدی بوہرا کمیونٹی کے میرے بزرگوار، نوجوان بھائیوں اور بہنوں، السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. خدا تعالی اسلام اور اہل اسلام کی عزت قائم اور دائم رکھے. تمام محبان اہل بیت کو پہم نعمتوں سے نوازے. خدا کی اعلیٰ خلقت، افضل عطرت، خیر البشر کے شہزادوں، آپ کے گھر کی جاروب کشی ہم غلابوں کو نصیب فرمائے. امام جعفر الصادق سلام اللہ علیہ امت کے امام، رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ اور امیر المؤمنین مشکل کشا علی کے علم کے وارث، جن کے علم کا شہرہ تمام اہل اسلام میں ہے، جن کا فرمان خود رسول پاک کا فرمان ہے. آپ مولا کو، امام جعفر الصادق سلام اللہ علیہ کو، آپ کے والد امام محمد الباقر صلوات اللہ علیہ کے علم کی وراثت ملی، جنہیں رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ نے اپنے پاک سلام سے نوازا تھا. امام محمد الباقر سلام اللہ علیہ. اور یہ فرمان کیا تھا کہ یا باقر العلم ابقر العلم بقرہ. اے محمد باقر، آپ تمام عالم میں اسلام کا فقہ کا علم نشر فرمائے، جن سے امت مسلمہ حق پر اور اسلام کی فراہم کی ہوئی ہدایت پر چل سکے. کسی کو علم میں کوئی شک ہو، کوئی خدشہ ہو تو آپ کی طرف رجوع کرے. کسی کو رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ کی احادیث کی حقانیت جاننی ہو تو آپ کی سند سے روایت دیکھیں. امام محمد باقر سلام اللہ علیہ اہل حدیث جو روایت بیان کرتے ہیں وہ متفرق اسناد سے کرتے ہیں. احادیث شریفہ کی حقانیت ثابت کرنے کے لیے اسناد کا صحیح ہونا لازمی ہے. اور جو حدیث امام جعفر الصادق کی سند سے بیان کی جائیں، اس حدیث کو اہل حدیث اور مشہور روات حدیث مرفوع سے نامزد کرتے ہیں. حدیث مرفوع. رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ نے فرمایا کہ جب بھی کوئی تم پر میری حدیث پیش کرے اور تم اس کی حقانیت جاننا چاہتے ہو تو اس حدیث کو قرآن پاک پر پیش کرو. اگر وہ حدیث قرآن سے مطابقت رکھتی ہو تو وہ حدیث صحیح ہے، جس کی معنی اہل العلم اور اہل تعویل اس طرح سے کرتے ہیں کہ اس حدیث کو قرآن پر اور قرآن کے قرین رسول اللہ کے اصحاب اور اطرت اطہار پر پیش کرو اور ان کی سند سے بیان کی ہوئی حدیث پر یقین کرو. امام جعفر الصادق سلام اللہ علیہ آج آپ کا ہم یوم ولادت منانے کے لیے، بلکہ آپ کے نام لینے کے لیے، نام کی تسبیح کرنے کے لیے، اور جس طرح امام نے فرمایا کہ رحم اللہ امرأن احیا امرنا، خدا اس شخص کو رحمت کرے جو ہمارا نام زندہ رکھے. تو امام جعفر الصادق سلام اللہ علیہ کے یوم میلاد پر ہم آپ کا نام احیا کرنے کے لیے یہاں جمع ہوئے ہیں. آج لبرٹی اور انڈیویجولیٹی کے پرچم بلند ہے. ہر آدمی کو اکیلے رہنا ہے. وہاں یعنی وہ اگر 10 جن بھی بیٹھے ہیں اور سب کے ہاتھ میں موبائل ہے تو وہ اکیلے ہی ہیں. ایسے ماحول میں ہم امام عالی مقام کی ذکر کرنے کے لیے جمع ہوئے، یہ امام کا عظیم معجزہ ہے. اور قابل مبارکباد ہے وہ تمام صاحبان کہ جنہوں نے یہ پروگرام مرتب کیا. قابل مبارکباد ہے. ایک عالم سیدنا المعید الشیرازی، آپ نے رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ کا معجزہ، اس کا تجزیہ کرتے ہوئے فرمایا کہ رسول اللہ کے تمام معاجز خلق کو مبہور کرنے والے تھے. سب پریشان تھے آپ کے معاجز پر، لیکن اعلیٰ میں اعلیٰ معجزہ رسول اللہ کا یہ تھا کہ آپ نے انسان کو انسان بنانا سکھایا. آج تو میں تشریح نہیں کروں گا کہ انسان کی بھی یعنی ابھی ایک جو چل رہا ہے کہ کون مرد ہے کون عورت ہے، کس کو مرد بننا ہے کس کو عورت بننا ہے، یعنی انسانیت تو انسانیت، حیوانیت بھی شرما رہی ہے آج کے علم پر. لیکن رسول اللہ کا یہ معجزہ ہے کہ آپ نے انسان کو انسان بنانا سکھایا. اگر اپن حقیقی انسان بن جائے تو وہ انسان بے ساختہ فرشتوں کی صف میں شامل ہو جاتا ہے. ہمارے 51 میں داعی ابھی جو ہیں وہ 53 میں داعی سیدنا مفضل سیف الدین، آپ کے فادر سیدنا محمد برہان الدین آپ سب تقریباً جانتے ہیں، یہاں تشریف لا چکے ہیں. اور آپ کے فادر سیدنا طاہر سیف الدین بہت بڑے عالم تھے، کئی کتابیں آپ نے لکھی ہیں. اور آپ نے یہ اپنی ایک نصیحت دعوت کی زبان میں لکھی ہے. اس میں لکھا ہے کہ زمیں تھی آسمانی بن، یعنی وہ انسان کی پیدائش صحیح ہو گئی جو زمین سے آسمانی بن گیا، فرشتہ بن گیا. اور آج اپنا یہ اجتماع یہاں اسی سلسلے کی ایک کڑی ہے کہ ہم امام کو یاد کریں گے، اور امام جیسے بنیں گے تو یقیناً زمین سے آسمانی بن جائیں گے۔ آج کے اس موقف کی غنیمت لے کے ہم دعوتی بورہ افراد، اہل بیت کے محبین، شیعہ برادران کے شکر گزار ہیں۔ آپ صاحبان کے ہم بہت شکر گزار ہیں۔ شکریہ ادا کرنا چاہتے ہیں آپ کا کہ ہم سب کو اس عظیم جلسے میں شرکت کا موقع فراہم کیا، اور اہل بیت کی محبت جو ہم سب کو جمع کرتی ہے اسے زندہ کیا۔ امام جعفر الصادق صلوات اللہ علیہ فرماتے ہیں، امام حسین صلوات اللہ علیہ آپ کے اہل بیت اور اصحاب میدان کربلا میں محبت کا ایسا درس سکھایا جو صدیوں تک اہل بیت کے محبین کو ہدایت دیتا رہے گا۔ جب جب کربلا کی ذکر آئے گی انسان زندہ ہوتا رہے گا اور زمین سے آسمانی بنتا رہے گا، فرشتہ بنتا رہے گا۔ عاشورہ کی رات جب حسین امام نے ان سب سے فرمایا کہ سب چلے جائیں، رات کے سناٹے میں، اندھارے میں چراغ بجھا دیے امام حسین نے، سب کو جمع کیا، فرمایا دشمن میرے خون کے پیاسے ہیں، آپ سب میں سے جس کو جانا ہے وہ جا سکتے ہیں، مجھے شہید ہونا ہے، میں شہید ہو جاؤں گا۔ تو فرمایا آپ چلے جاؤ۔ اس وقت اہل بیت اور اصحاب کرام نے ایک جاں دل کی آواز سے کہا کہ اگر خدا ہمیں 70 بار 70 ٹائمز پیدا کرے اور ہر بار ہم آپ پر فدا ہوں تو بھی غلامی کا حق ادا نہیں ہوگا۔ اللہ تعالی ہمیں توفیق عطا فرمائے کہ اسی طرح اہل بیت کے امر کو زندہ کرتے رہیں، ہر امر میں ہم آہنگی سے مل جل کر رہیں، اپنے وطن کے وفادار رہیں، اہل بیت کی دی ہوئی نصیحتوں کی دل سے تبعات کریں۔ دوبارہ ہم آپ کے شکر گزار ہیں کہ آپ ہمیشہ ہماری معاونت کرتے ہیں۔ کچھ لوگوں سے میں یہاں ملتا بھی ہوں اور مجھے اچھا لگتا ہے۔ عید کی پارٹی میں بھی آیا تھا میں یہاں، اس وقت تو کافی لوگ تھے، آج بھی کافی ہے اور اتنے کافی ہیں۔ بڑا اچھا لگتا ہے جب ملاقات ہوتی ہے آپ سے۔ دستہ گزارش ہے کہ سیدنا مفضل سیف الدین صاحب، ہمیں امید ہے بلکہ یقین ہے کہ عنقریب میں یہاں تشریف لائیں گے، اور آپ صاحبوں سے میری درخواست ہے کہ آپ ضرور استقبال میں، مولا کے استقبال میں آپ تشریف لائیں۔ آپ کا ہمیں بہت ساتھ ہے، ہمیشہ آپ ساتھ دیتے ہیں، مدد کرتے ہیں، محبت کرتے ہیں۔ اللہ پاک ہمیں اسی طرح ایک ساتھ رکھے۔ نبی کریم پر خدا صلوات پڑھے، اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد، وآخر دعوانا ان الحمد للہ رب العالمین۔
Jazakallah. Thank you for those words of wisdom, Shaykh AmanatAli, for his tawfiqat, continued health and well-being. Please recite a loud salawat. Shayk talked about several different topics, but one thing that he mentioned multiple times and at the end was coming together, remaining united under the banner of our commonalities. And this reminded me of a hadith as I was researching different hadith. Imam Sadiq ﷺ was speaking to one of his followers, and he said to that follower, he said, "Tell our followers, do not let different paths distract you. By Allah, our wilayah cannot be achieved by other than piety and striving in the world and having sympathy with brothers in faith. He who oppresses people is not one of us." Inshallah, Allah will keep us all to have sympathy and good wishes and cooperation amongst all of our various communities. Please recite a loud salawat. Our next esteemed speaker is Brother Murad Musa Bhaidani. Brother Murad is a former president of the Ismaili Council for the Midwestern USA. He was also a member of former Governor Pat Quinn's Muslim Advisory Council. Please welcome him to the podium with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let's recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers and sisters. And given the presence of our common Shia community, I'll also extend a very heartfelt Ya Ali Madad to each one of you. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge my deep gratitude to Baitul Ilm, and particularly to Maulana Shaykh Mukhtar Amir Faizi Sahab for bringing all of us together on this occasion of Milad of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Sari ala Muhammad. And by extension, of course, it also includes the Milad of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Shaykh Faizi Sahab, thank you for always looking to the larger community of lovers of the Ahl al-Bayt, the house of the Prophet, as well as all of our brothers and sisters in creation with eyes of wisdom, which goes to the heart of the essential unity of mankind shared by Surah Nisa, Ayat 1, which states, "O mankind, be careful of your duty to your Lord, who created you from a single soul, and from it created its mate. And from twain hath spread abroad a multitude of men and women." I feel especially privileged to share this forum with my brothers, Shaykh Zohair Bhai Sahab from the Dawoodi Bohra community, and Dr. Sulayman, Sayyid Sulayman Hassan. I used to know you as more like Sulayman Abidi from the Imam al-Asr seminary. And so, Shaykh Zohair Bhai, thank you so much for your comments. I had the opportunity to also listen to your predecessor, Umar Bhai Sahab, when he had joined us for a Milad out with the Ismaili Council. Dr. Sayyid Sulayman, I also wanted to add that I have particularly enjoyed our conversations over the years and listening to you over the last decade and a half of my engagement with Baitul Ilm, and I have always admired your erudition, especially when it comes to bridging thoughts from our traditions to contemporary times. Yeah? Let me also acknowledge presence in the Jamaat here of several of my brothers and sisters from the leadership of the Ismaili Council of Midwestern United States, along with members of the community. Most of you ideally should be speaking here as compared to me as a layperson, and that's why far more important for me for having these feelings of privilege as well as gratitude for the opportunity to share some thoughts on this occasion. All of you here are living examples of the oft-repeated cliche that we come across, that ideas we share and have in common are far more important and relevant to us than what may divide us. So thank you all for your inspiring presence and your time this evening. In our lives, we are marked by markers. We are marked by markers by which we calibrate whatever may be happening around us. And that could be events that may allow us to engage with the world. For example, on Mother's Day, my kids call up my wife, and many of us make a mental note of being nicer to our parents on that day and hopefully not ghost her calls. The two Eids similarly offer a very similar marker of our engagement with the divine. Similarly, celebrations and commemorations of our beloved Prophet and our beloved Imams offer us markers to engage with both deen and dunya. And so it acts as a springboard to jumpstart our commitments to the values that we may cherish, but often we are not able to apply them. And so this gives us an excuse to move out from the status quo and make an adjustment, right? It provides us that breathing room and motivation to make that change. Just like on Mother's Day, I may not have called my mom for days, weeks, or months, but it gives me a motivation to make a call, right? It's also a great reminder, commemorations are a great reminder that our faith is that of constant renewal and not of despair. It is one of hope. No matter how many times we fall and may need to recommit, our faith invites us in through these opportunities that we have, through the stories of our Aima, through the stories of our beloved Prophet. And so our faith tradition promises us a spring even at the advent of autumn, where our hearts open up towards the nur, towards the light. And I have taken some liberties from a poem by one of my favorite poems from the land that I was born in, Bengal, by Tagore, which resonated with me when it comes to engaging and re-engaging with the proverbial gate to the Madinatul Ilm, the city of knowledge. Quote, "As our days journeys to dusk, lest that gate is shut, we hasten in fear. Yet there is time for our hearts always to find the gates open and near. Our hearts bend down at that gate to kiss the ground, for it knows we are finally here where we belonged." End of quote. Stories from the lives of our Prophet, of our Imams, helps us build a sense of identity as well as a community, and it leads us to some action. They function both at the level of the community as well as at the level of the individual. Stories therefore act as windows to the world, refracting through our intellect to build upon our identity and stories for the communal memory. Over time, some stories are brought in while some stories are left out. Stories allows our past to be brought back into the present. Therefore, when we step into those stories, we become part of them, and as a result, it offers us agency. One last metaphor on the stories that I would also like to share is that stories also act as mirrors. We get to see ourselves in addition to seeing others through the window of the story. As mirrors, stories allows us to reflect and offers an opportunity to recalibrate our own lives. They allow us to experience the human condition in different contexts. They remind us, they probe us to think about, what would I do if I were in this situation? They help us understand ourselves better. They challenge us, they inspire us, they offer us a moral compass, and hopefully they help transform us. Our human condition is felt lived and experienced through stories. I was initially thinking that tonight I want to spend some time talking about the context of the gate to the city of knowledge during the life and times of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. However, given that I had a few other thoughts that I wanted to share, I'm going to merge some ideas together. And so let me include these two ideas that have resonated with me about the life of our beloved Imam, which I hope to share this evening. Of course, there is some trepidation in my heart because I'm thinking and I'm going to talk about one of the giants from our tradition, our beloved Imam, Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Let me first start with the context of 8th century Medina and the rest of the Muslim world. The first 2 decades of Imam Jafar's imamat witnessed some very turbulent times in early Islam with the revolts from some Shi'i groups, the uprising of the Zaydiyya as well as the Abbasid movement of the Hashemiyya unfolding from the Cassaniya. In addition to new frontiers of knowledge were being added through the translations of Greek, Persian, Indian works of science, literature, mathematics, and philosophy, among many others. During this milieu, we also find various schools of thought within the nascent communities across Muslim lands, including practitioners of tasawwuf, whom we come to later refer to as the Sufis. We may also want to note that the famed Dar al-Hikmah and the likes of Al-Kindi in particular were still more than half a century away from birth. It is in this context which offers a window into how Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam became a focal point of reference for ilm and piety, not just for the nascent Shia and the Shia Imami community, but to Muslims and scholars of diverse backgrounds as well as exponents of other religions, theosophers, and Gnostics who frequented his house in search of knowledge, in thirst of knowledge, and in quest of knowledge. He is cited in a wide range of historical sources, including the Tariq of al-Tabari. Al-Yaqubi acknowledges his insightful learning, stating that the scholars often refer to him as Al-Alim, the learned one, when narrating from him. Al-Dababi recognizes his contributions to Sunni traditions, while Abu Nu'aym and Fariduddin Attar see him as the head of the Sufi line of saints and mystics. Ithna Ashni writers, as well as like Al-Kulaini, as well as Ismaili scholars such as Al-Qadi al-Numan, record his monumental contributions to their respective Shi'i traditions. It is said that even Malik ibn Anas and Abu Hanifa were his students according to some traditions. At his home, no topic is out of scope. His students includes those who even excel in alchemy and astronomy. Imam Jafar al-Sadiq was an intellectual who used his intellect in helping others discover the two essential elements of education and knowledge that applies to us even more today, when knowledge and education has taken such a material outlook. First, discovering and understanding, in whatever capacity we can, Allah's creation through the pursuit of knowledge. Number 2, understanding how to apply existing as well as new knowledge to help Allah's creation. Besides being a revered teacher for many, let me also hasten to add that Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam was of course the spiritual guide, our Imam, initiating followers into the inner paths of knowledge and wisdom that is experiential and realized in the heart of the believer and his murid. I have often looked at Imam Jafar al-Sadiq with awe at his ability to bring such diverse thoughts, ideas, and personalities within his tent, especially during this time of upheaval. Political stability was not there. And so when I reflect on Imam Jafar's life as a mirror, it calls out my own attitude towards diversity. I often wonder how easy he made it look when I may all the time jump to conclusions and make summary judgments when faced with someone that I may not recognize, or someone who may look differently, or someone who may dress differently, or someone who may think or act differently, or someone whose ideas may not jive with what I am thinking. I also apply my split-second judgment to cultural practices that I may not consider my own. Just like the famous story of Maulana Rumi of those 5 blindfolded men in the room who keep naming the elephant and calling it a pipe or a fan or a tree trunk based on just a single marker of identity, as compared to taking the time to understand, to pause, and to look for the entire elephant. Imam Jafar modeled for us the fact that the Noble Quran speaks in multiple ways to different groups of people according to their own understanding. And he offered through his example how we may want to engage with a diverse group of people with humility and with loving compassion, rather than instinctively tuning out voices that we may disagree with. We don't have to agree with those voices. He taught us that we still have to witness those voices. Witness them. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Witness them as fellow creations of Allah. There is a tremendous diversity within the Muslim world and within our own communities. We come in different colors, sizes, and mindsets. The almost quarter century of Imam Jafar's imamat is part of the larger narrative of the past 1,391 years, where we have approached that gate through the lanes of tafsir, through the lanes of law and theology, through the lanes of ta'wil and falsafa, through the lanes of rational sciences, through the lanes of tasawwuf, dhikr, and spiritual practices, through the range of spiritual practices and the traditions of our forefathers, through the lane of cosmopolitan ethics, through the lanes of justice, service, and support for human dignity. Every lane in space and time offering a place for vision unopened. And as we approach that gate, we bear in our own unique way Walaya, the love for the family of the Prophet, the Ahl al-Bayt. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The second example of the life of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam that I would like to briefly share stems from his loving compassion for all creations, which included all of humankind as well, even those who disagreed with him. Some of us may be familiar with a story that actually comes to us from a Hanbali jurist of his kindness and his generosity for the pilgrim who accused him of stealing his money belt in the mosque while he was sleeping. And the Imam, in his immense wisdom, not only paid but also allowed for him to keep that money even after he found his money belt in his own home, in his own bag later on. It brings to mind the beautiful example of our beloved Prophet, who also acted with such immense loving kindness to the lady who kept on throwing trash at him every single time he would go through the lanes outside her home. They didn't admonish the accuser, but rather drew a veil on top of their past actions. They didn't shame them, and in the process, it allowed those individuals to change and ask for the forgiveness of both the Prophet and Imam Jafar al-Sadiq. It really reminded me also of how gentle the Imams are in correcting our own mistakes. There's this beautiful story of the young Hazrat Hassan alayhi salam and the young Hazrat Hussain alayhi salam. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Who noticed this elder gentleman performing the wudu. And so when they see certain changes in the way that wudu was performed, instead of offering their own teachings, what they offer is asking the elderly gentleman to watch them as they perform wudu and to point out which of them was correct in his approach. And after they have performed the wudu in such a gentle manner, teaching the elderly gentleman, the gentleman turned around and offered his own thanks to both the young kids, the grandsons of our beloved Prophet. And so this is the legacy of the Ahlul Bayt. So my reflection questions as I talk about this idea of loving compassion is, how do we poke holes into our own blind spots so that we make an attempt to get and stand in the shoes of those with whom we may disagree? How do we create spaces in our mind for multiple stories? We all are protagonists in our own stories. So how do we create space in our minds for others around us? And particularly for those who may find themselves at the other spectrum of privileges in that particular story. Al-Qadi al-Numan in Da'il al-Islam, volume 2, shares the following words of wisdom from Imam Jafar al-Sadiq as inspiration. Quote, "And for a man to walk with brother Muslim, and for a man to walk with a brother Muslim in his hour of need is more pleasing to God than for him to sit in retreat for 2 months in the sacred mosque." The Prophet's spiritual experience in the cave of Hira led to a radical reimagining of a just and equitable society. A society that was not bound by the relationships of a tribe, but it was bound by the loving compassion of members of the community, the members of the nascent Muslim community. Therefore, it is more than a coincidence that the Basmalah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim becomes our vocabulary at the start of every single thing that we do in our lives. Ar-Rahman, the most compassionate, as one of my very good friends, Reza Shah Kazmi, calls it, the most loving, compassionate. Ar-Rahim, the most merciful, the most kind. It encapsulates every single one of the attributes that we hold dear. This language of loving compassion is the bedrock which brings all of us together. All of us from within the Imami Shia community who are here today. And I would be remiss if I don't use this opportunity to recognize the loving compassion of many of you here, for me personally, and many members of the community who are present here as well. As thinking men and thinking women, our faith challenges us to consider our diversity of tongue and our colors as a blessing and as a sign from Allah. Let me come back full circle to the verse from Surah Nisa that I shared at the very beginning, where the Quran reminds us of our origins from a single soul and the spread abroad of our diversity as multitude of men and women. These words offer deep spiritual insight, a divine imperative, if you will, which in my view is the foundation of our commitment to each other, that which connects us to the rest of humankind. It enjoins us to not only engage but also celebrate what a very good friend of mine in his new book called The Dance of Unity and Diversity. This dance only plays out with the music of loving compassion. His Highness the Aga Khan, whom many of you may have met when he was here, shared an insight on diversity at the 10th annual La Fontaine Baldwin lecture that I would like to share to end my talk tonight. He shared that, quote, "When we talk about diversity, we often use the metaphor of achieving social harmony. But perhaps we might also want to employ an additional musical comparison. We might talk not just about the ideal of harmony, the sounding of a single chord, but also about counterpoint. In counterpoint, each voice follows a separate musical line, but always part of a single work of art, with the sense both of independence and of belonging." End of quote. We don't all have to melt into the melting pot and lose our own identity and become unrecognizable. We can continue with both independence and with belonging, so that we stay true to our own self. We stay true to our own self while also being part of a larger community of common purpose with common values that we cherish. That is the dance that you all elected to be part of tonight. And I have come to realize that that is the only way for me to honor these kernels of existence that I have the privilege and the responsibility to wear. And so thank you for your courage in making a difference with your presence to this Shia Imami community in Chicagoland area, as well as your generous gift of time. Let me end with a prayer that may we have the courage, the integrity, and the wisdom to understand and follow the path of those upon whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed His favor. And may we continue engaging with each other with loving compassion. Assalamu alaikum. Let us recite the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Jazakallah, Brother Murad, for your enlightening words, touching on many topics that are very relevant, and giving us good tips and guidance for us to ponder and think about and implement in our lives. For his health and well-being and continued success, please recite a very loud salawat. And I wanted to share one more hadith that I think is relevant, especially in light of what Brother Murad was saying in part of his speech. It's narrated that Imam Sadiq ﷺ, he was speaking to his Shia. He said, "Oh, my Shia, be an ornament for us and do not be a disgrace for us." And I'm interjecting here, but we would ask, wow, that's a big thing. Don't be a disgrace for us, be an ornament. So it's important for us to ponder on what words come next. He said, "Speak nicely to people, guard your tongues, and restrain them from unnecessary and indecent words." And in these charged political, sociological, whatever you want to say times, these words are more profound than ever, because when everybody is raising the temperature of rhetoric, this is telling us lower the temperature of rhetoric, which unfortunately people aren't listening to. But at least we as his Shia can try to do that so that we can be an ornament for him, as opposed to a disgrace. Na'udhu billah. I would now like to welcome our final speaker to the Beit al-Ilm community. He doesn't need much of an introduction because he is our own. But for the broader community, Hujjatul Islam, Maulana Dr. Sayyid Sulayman Hassan Abidi, he was one of our resident scholars here for many years. He now lives in Virginia, where he is the president of the Imam al-Asr Masjid, and we are welcoming him back again, and inshallah we will welcome him back more and more, because he, like I said, he is one of our own. So I would like to welcome him up. Please welcome him up with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين شفيع المذنبين وحبيب قلوب الصادقين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد. Respected scholars, dear guests, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We have benefited from very heartfelt and very insightful discourses in light of the guidance we receive from our beloved Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. And I would like to add a few words, inshallah, to benefit from this gathering. And inshallah, it is my prayer that we set a precedent today for more such gatherings where those of us who have the honor and the privilege to call ourselves lovers and followers of the family of our Prophet, Ahlul Baytin Nabi, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim, can come together and can ponder and discuss what it means and what our responsibility is as the followers of Ahlul Bayt. In the month of Rabi'ul Awwal, we celebrate the birth not only of the grandson of the Prophet, Imam Jafar ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhim as-salam, but also of our Prophet himself, Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alih, was born, according to narrations, either on the 12th of this month or the 17th. And Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, according to most narrations, was born on the 17th of this month. But if you have studied the history of the Muslim community and the history of the followers of Ahlul Bayt, then there have been many periods and many times and many places when you would be hard-pressed to see a Nizari Shi'i and a Musta'li Shi'i and an Ithna Ash'ari Shi'i coming together in one place under one roof, remembering and honoring our shared affiliation to our Imam and to our Prophet. In fact, this is the first time that I have the honor and privilege of attending such an event and hearing such enlightened talks. And before I proceed, I would like to say that this is a testament to the leadership of my own teacher, Maulana Shaykh Amir Mukhtar Faizi, and the community here at Baytul Ilm for holding this event and establishing this precedent, and for the continued success of this and like initiatives. Please recite a loud salawat. Why is it so inspiring and so important for programs like this to be conducted? Not only because it is unique in history. Sometimes in academia, they talk about the fact that you have very vicious debates among scholars, the more their views are similar. Because if I don't agree with you about anything, then I'm not threatened by you, and I don't really consider you to be a peer or a competitor. But if I share a very close pedigree and many beliefs and practices and history, then both I might feel more emotionally invested in our differences, and I might feel more threatened by your presence and your views. That's true not only in academia, but it is also true within society and within the history of Islam and the history of those who were privileged to be followers of Ahlul Bayt. But there is much that we can learn from one another. The Ismaili community, in its humanitarian work, in its preservation of some of the architectural and the artistic and the cultural heritage of the Muslim world and of humanity, is not just a gold standard for the Shia or for the Muslims, but an inspiring example for humanity. The way the Bohra community has maintained a close-knit community and been able to preserve tradition and law in spite of rapid influx of modernity and so many changes over the last few generations, is something which is very unique among religious communities and even among Muslim communities. These are things that all of us can learn from and be inspired by, and maybe practices that we too can adopt. But for initiatives like this to be effective, we have to have a sense of two things. One is the way in which we are to interact, and one is the goal and the aim that we have from these gatherings, and that is what I would like to briefly speak about. The first is the way that we must interact. I see some members of our Baytul Ilm community who may remember the incident that I am about to describe. It was a number of years ago. We had an event dedicated to the inspiring example of the Prince of Martyrs, Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam Hussein ibn Ali alayhim as-salam. There were guests from the Sunni and from the Shi'i community. One of the speakers was our own Maulana Faizi. He gave a very inspiring talk. And there was a very heartfelt and a very inspiring talk by a speaker from the Sunni community as well. And I think everybody in that gathering was touched and was benefited by the exchange of knowledge and love for Imam Hussein and Ahlul Bayt. And then a question-answer period came, and the first question came from the Shi'i community to the Sunni speaker, that if you know all these things and you believe all these things, why don't you become Shia? And I wished I could have melted into the ground that this is a member of my community, and that is what they are taking from this event. It tells us that maybe we may love Imam Hussein, and we may truly be devoted to Ahlul Bayt, but we have not learned even the first lesson of the wisdom and the grace of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. When we say that Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam was the teacher of two of the Imams of Ahlus Sunnah, Abu Hanifa for a brief period of 2 years, because Abu Hanifa lived in Kufa. He was not in Medina, which is where Imam Jafar al-Sadiq lived. But in the early days of the Abbasid Caliph, Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, he had to go at the Caliph's assistance to Kufa, and during that period he interacted with not just the governing authorities that had compelled the Imam to come, but also with the leading religious scholars and authorities in the city of Kufa, one of whom was Abu Hanifa. Because Abu Hanifa was actually about the same age. In fact, he was a few years older than Imam Jafar al-Sadiq. So he was a recognized faqih and a scholar within the broader Muslim community. But when he saw the wisdom and the grace of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, he prided himself on having the privilege to learn and to be benefited and to be present in the scholarly circle that formed around Imam Jafar al-Sadiq in the limited time that he was in Kufa for 2 years. The remaining times that Abu Hanifa would have interacted with the Imam would have been very brief, when he had come to Mecca and Medina for Hajj and then ziyarah of the Haram of our Prophet. The second Imam who was a direct student of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq was Malik ibn Anas. And he was a native of Medina, a resident of Medina. And he was about 30 years younger than Imam Jafar al-Sadiq. But he says that although Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, now he was the Imam of the Shia, they would give their life at the command or even at the slightest signal of the Imam. And Malik was a young student at that time. He says that when I would come, the Imam would give me his own cushion for me to sit. And he would ask about me, and he would say that I have an affection for you. And Malik, for even 30 years after the death or the martyrdom of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, he would remember the presence of the Imam with fondness. He would tell the story of how he had done Hajj with Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, and that when the Imam wanted to say the tarbiyah, every time the Imam would want to speak and say labbaik Allahumma labbaik, his voice would catch within his own throat. And Malik said that it is the command of Allah that in order to have a valid Hajj, you must say these words. And the Imam said that, "O Malik, if I say these words, and then Allah were to say that you are just saying it with your tongue, but where is your soul and where is your heart? Then what answer would I give Allah?" Malik, don't think it is so easy to say, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, because it is not just words. It is an orientation of one's life. So these are the stories that Malik ibn Anas would tell with tears in his eyes and with fondness of his memories of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, the leader of the Shia, but also such a leader and role model and inspiring figure for all Muslims. That once, in those interactions, did Imam Jafar al-Sadiq say to Abu Hanifa that you are to leave unless you accept my imamat? Many of us now, when we're weak, we will be accommodating. But if we have many Shia and many followers, then we will assert our authority and we will say, I can take this battle. Malik was a student. Yes, he was one of the brightest students of Ahlus Sunnah in Medina at that time, which is why Imam Jafar Sadiq gave him a special attention, even when he was so young. But do we have even one time when Malik says that Imam Jafar al-Sadiq said that, Malik, you know, you really should accept my imamat? and you should stop quoting the hadith of those other teachers that you go to, and you should be an exclusive narrator of my ahadith. Although if Imam Jafar al-Sadiq were to say that, it would be not only well within his rights, but it would be an act of mercy and guidance for Malik ibn Anas or for Abu Hanifa to say, where else are you spending your time? Whatever you seek is where with me. I am the source of guidance. But the Imam recognized where they were and what they had the capacity for. And if they didn't become the Shia and the followers of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, then both of them came at least one step closer and were better off for their interaction with your Imam and my Imam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So when I speak of the method by which we must have these interactions, this is what I am referring to. It is not sustainable if we come together under the family of our shared heritage and love of Ahlul Bayt, and then any group who comes has the impression that maybe this other group is trying to poach our followers and convert them to their school of thought. Now, everybody has their conscience, and everybody should follow their conscience. And when we are exposed to other schools of thought within Islam or outside of Islam, then everybody will learn and contemplate and will pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His guidance and for His mercy, and everybody will follow their conscience. And that is something that doesn't need to be said. But the point is that for these initiatives to not just continue, but to grow and to have their true benefit, that should not be the purpose in my heart or mind or in any of our hearts, because there is a greater wisdom that we learn from our imams themselves. I gave one example from the interaction of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq with Abu Hanifa and Malik, but we have similar examples from the imams who came before and from the great figures of Ahlul Bayt and from our Prophet himself during his lifetime. There was a time in Islamic history when the Abbasid Caliphate was gravely threatened by the Fatimid Caliphate in Egypt. Because in many ways, what the Abbasids claimed, the Fatimids were able to accomplish. There is much history, and I don't want to oversimplify, but at least in their better days, the Fatimid Caliphate, perhaps for the first and only time within the classical period of Islam, allowed the Sunni schools of law to thrive, not just practice but teach. And not just the Ismaili Shi'i school, but also the Ithna Ashari school to thrive, and not just practice but to teach. And when they had not just an intellectual success, but also material and economic and military success, the Abbasid Caliphate was threatened. And there was pressure upon the prominent figures in Baghdad to say something to weaken the Fatimid Caliph. In the time of the Abbasid Caliph Al-Qadir Billah, the Caliph issued an order that the prominent scholars of Baghdad are to write a formal mahdar, a formal document saying that the Ismaili Caliphs of Egypt are not descended from the Prophet. Because that is one of their claims of legitimacy and honor in the hearts of people. And the Abbasids themselves claimed legitimacy because they were descended from the uncle of the Prophet, Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib. So the Caliph thought, and the governing body thought, that this will weaken their feared competitors. And when there is caliphal authority, and the threat of the dispossession of all of your property and imprisonment and maybe even death, then many people will say, where do I side? But one of the scholars who refused was the compiler of Nahj al-Balagha, Sharif Radi. He was an Ithna Ashari scholar. But even when his own brother Sharif Murtada and his own father Abul Ma'ali said that this is the command of the Caliph, sign the document, there will be no sin, he said, no. I will not defame and I will not impute something to the Ismaili Caliph that is not accurate. Whatever the consequences may be, I will bear them. There is an example we have from within our own history of that honor and that grace. Not because Sharif Radi had pledged any allegiance or had an agreement in doctrine or practice with the Fatimid Caliph, but he had a commitment to the truth and he had a recognition that there is a shared heritage and a mutual obligation that those who stem from the teachings of Ahlul Bayt have to one another. So this is about the method of interaction. It must be based on mutual respect, but then there is a tendency we have, especially within interfaith gatherings and within these types of sessions in the West, that we also need to be aware of and avoid. And that is that I find out about what other people believe, and I say, oh, that is so interesting. I didn't know that. And then I hear a talk from another school of thought or another religion, and I say, oh, that is so interesting. As if we are examining curiosities in a museum. This is one of the words that I find the most destructive to religious learning is interesting. Because when we say something is interesting, it is as if we are relegating it to a category of entertainment rather than a category of what is important for our soul. The dessert you eat is far more interesting than the meals that you eat. But what keeps you alive and gives you health and sustains you is not the candy, it is the meal. So I know that if I say that, you're going to come to me and say, Maulana, your speech was not interesting, and I will be perfectly happy with that. But not only do we need to have mutual respect for our different perspectives, we also need to make sure that we have humility, that we are learning, that we are not just looking at each other as curiosities who have preserved a memory or a legacy or a tradition from Ahlul Bayt in unique ways, but we have to think of what that means for our own obligation and what we can learn from our Prophet and from our Imams. That humility is towards one another, but most of all, it is towards God, it is towards our Prophet, it is towards our Imams, it is towards Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. So that I don't come away and say I had an interesting experience, I had a fun experience, I enjoyed it, but I say I have something to think about, I have something to ponder, I have a greater understanding of my need to better learn the teachings of my religion and of my Imam, and to better practice and adopt those lessons and those values in my own life. The last thing that I will say about the method of our interaction is that there is a greater responsibility on the majority community to set a constructive terms of engagement. Within the broader Muslim community, all of us, Shi'i and Sunnis, Sufis and Salafis, we all live within a discourse, perhaps we can call it a hegemony, defined by Ahlul Sunnah, because they are the majority within the Muslim world. And I, as a Shi'i, can come with as much of an inspiring ideal of Muslim unity, but it will only be as effective as the broader community of Muslims adopts it and practices it. Otherwise, it will remain a marginal ideal and not a broad-based lived reality. So within the Shi'i family, there is a greater responsibility on those of us from the Ithna Ashari community to make sure that we do not act, speak, or think in a hegemonic manner. Sometimes we might speak and refer to the Zaydis as 5 Imams, or to Ismailis as 6 Imams, or we might use the word Shia as referring only to our own school of thought, as if our brothers and sisters from the Ismaili community or from other communities are not also the Shia of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhimus salatu wassalam. And it is important for us to be aware of where a majority community can sometimes, not necessarily with evil intent, but sometimes because of negligence, forget that each community with which it interacts has its own identity, has its own history, and we are to respect and learn and welcome if we are to have a sustainable mutual interaction. That is always a greater responsibility on those who have a numerical majority to set terms of debate that are not hegemonic, but that are rooted within the loving compassion, and I should say within the teaching and within the practice of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhimus salatu wassalam themselves. So that is about the method of interaction, and inshallah this will be a precedent that comes forward. Now what about the goals? We know the challenges of a secular and a materialistic and an individualistic society in which we live. There is sometimes a tendency among Muslims to be reactive and defensive and just try to preserve some part of our value system for ourselves and for our children because we feel like we are under attack from all sides. We feel like we are a minority within a minority. When we come together to affirm and to honor and yes, celebrate our connection to Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, the goal is for us to remember that we are not reactive and defensive, but we have a constructive message to give to every Muslim from another school of thought who might not know who the Imams of Ahlul Bayt were and might not know that they had a teaching of Islam which was not a school of thought or a sectarian understanding of Islam side by side with other schools of thought and other sectarian understandings of Islam. But this is the authentic and the genuine teaching of Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. My goal is not to say to a Salafi or a Sufi or a Sunni or a member of any other community or school of thought in Islam that you have to adopt my label. My goal when we come together, all of us who are the lovers and who aspire to be the followers of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, to better understand and then be able to convey the Islam of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, which is not only the only authentic form of Islam, but it is the one form of Islam that can successfully answer the challenges of liberalism and of secularism and of materialism in a way that takes the good from within those disparate ideologies, but that weaves it within that rich fabric and tapestry of belief in God and service of our purpose as human beings. I want a person to say that I am a Sunni, but until now in my life I may have attended Jum'ah, I may have attended the Jama'at for decades, but I didn't know about Imam Jafar Sadiq. Now I know, and now I love him. Now I have learned these moral teachings. Now I have learned these legal teachings. Now I have seen these du'as. Now I have understood this wonderful balanced teaching of Islam. What label a person chooses for themselves, that is a decision that they will make within their conscience. But all of us have a shared responsibility to Ahlul Bayt and towards our Imam to bring that teaching and that life-giving, life-affirming, and life-saving, genuine vision and version of Islam, which was taught by Ahlul Bayt, which was conveyed by Imam Jafar al-Sadiq towards, first and foremost, the broader Muslim community, and then from there to all of humanity, which is in thirst for those teachings. Now I will come towards the conclusion. I want to tie the birth of our Prophet to the message of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq. There is a hadith, it's narrated in Bukhari and Muslim and other sources, that when Surah number 5, verse number 3, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 3, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممتم عليكم نعمتي, was revealed. This created a great discussion, commotion within the Muslim world. And that commotion, it reached even the people of the book. And in the time of the second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, it was said that the Jews would talk among themselves and they would say, if this verse were revealed for us, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم, today I have perfected for you your religion. وأتممت عليكم نعمتي, and I have completed for you my favor. We would have made it a day of celebration and Eid. And the second caliph, according to the narration in Bukhari and Muslim, he said to end that discussion that it is a day of Eid, it is a double day of Eid. It was revealed on Friday, the day of Arafah, just before Eid al-Adha. That is one conception of the perfection of the religion and the completion of God's favor. And according to a narration found in the Musnad of Ishaq ibn Rahawayh and the Musnad of Ibn Abi Shaybah, these are two authentic sources within the Sunni community, it is said that when this verse was revealed, Umar ibn al-Khattab began to cry. Why would you cry when Allah is saying, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا? Is that a time to cry? The Prophet said, why are you crying? And Umar ibn al-Khattab replied that until now our religion was increasing. But when Allah says, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم, well then when it has become complete, then it is only going to decrease after that. And so I cry because Allah has completed our religion, and now it is going to go towards nuqsan. Nuqsan not in the Urdu sense, but nuqsan in the Arabic sense, which is a gradual weathering away. Now, all of you who see that, you can see that this is a static conception of Islam. That it's perfected by the Prophet, and when the Prophet is there, you have access to the genuine teachings of Islam, but it's all downhill from there. You have Khilafah Rashida for 30 years, and then it is all downhill from there. Knowledge and the understanding of the Quran and the laws of the Prophet and the teachings of the Prophet will be subjected to more and more uncertainty, because as time passes, we have much more doubt about what the correct, authentic answer to our questions is. What do we get from Ahlul Bayt? All of us, in spite of our different schools of thought, we share that enriching guidance from Ahlul Bayt, that أَكْمَلْتُ لَكُمْ دِينَكُمْ وَأَتْمَمْتُ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَتِي does not mean that religion is perfect today and it's going to go downhill from there. It isn't a time for you to weep because you are going to lose something. If you are going to weep, then weep tears of joy, because Allah has given you wilayah. Allah has given you a connection to Ahlul Bayt. This religion was not sent just to be a historical memory of how beautiful it was in the days of the Prophet, but it was meant to give you a promise for the future. And one of the ways that we can move past our differences and be able to create a true unity is to look not only at the past. We can never forget the past. That is where we gain the knowledge of our religion and our values, but to look with equal vigor and equal fervor at the future. Because the religion of Islam and the connection between our Prophet and our Imam Jafar al-Sadiq and Ahlul Bayt more generally is because the completion of this religion, the perfection of God's favor, is a promise that the more you know and the more you follow the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, the more your own individual faith will increase, and the more your society will be blessed and will move towards perfection. The more evil and injustice, darkness and misguidance, oppression and all forms of human suffering will come to an end, because it is only through wilayah and an understanding and a connection to wilayah that divine promise can be fulfilled. That is the promise of these events. We are, in all of our diversity, all connected to each other through our love for Ahlul Bayt. They have many different aspects to their teaching. In ethics, in law, in doctrine, in science, and many other fields of learning, let us make a commitment that we will not forget any one aspect of the teachings of Ahlul Bayt to the exclusion of another. That we will connect to their doctrine, their practice, their prayers, their values to the greatest extent of our ability. We will approach them with humility, not just seeking something to interest us, but seeking something to benefit ourselves and others. And if we do that, then we will be able to show a life-giving message to all of humanity when it is in great need of that guidance and that inspiration. And inshallah, we will be worthy of the prayers and the guidance and the intercession of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam, because we will be holding aloft their teachings and their examples to the best of our ability. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you for your participation and increase the love of our Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt in your hearts. And may Allah give us many more opportunities to be united in gatherings like this and to be able to serve as a source of illumination for all Muslims and to bring the name and the message of Ahlul Bayt to the heart of every Muslim and all humanity. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah Maulana for your inspiring words, truly inspirational and illuminating, and inshallah we all take it to heart and put it into practice for Maulana Sulayman's health and well-being and continued tawfiqat. Please recite a very loud salawat. The time is now 5:54, so I want to thank everybody who came, who attended, and who helped us conclude this program in a timely fashion. We want to respect everyone's time, and so we are very thankful for everybody's participation and cooperation so that we could have this blessed event. I think one of the takeaways that we can take, and we heard this theme throughout the various speeches and presentations, was the importance and the greatness of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Was, yes, it was in his knowledge, yes, it was in his piety, yes, it was all those great characteristics, but it was also in how he was able to advance the cause of humanity and society, especially in such difficult times for the Muslim Ummah, and put the interests of the Muslim Ummah above any of his own interests, and which is why he was such a great success. And this is one of the great lessons that we see in the lives of the Ahlul Bayt, and we see in the life of the Prophet and all of the Imams, that they put the interests of the Muslims and the interests of humanity above anything, even though the communities that they lived in didn't necessarily always reciprocate that love and affection that they gave. But inshallah, we as the followers of Imam Sadiq can take that great lesson to heart, and this venue and this coming together and this joint celebration is one way where we come together and reflect on that, and inshallah we have opportunities to continue to work together, to cooperate with each other, to learn from each other, so that we can all better ourselves, better our own communities, and better society at large. And to conclude, I did want to recognize the sponsors of today's event. They were the families of Brother Aslam Durrani, Brother Asif Naqvi, and Brother Fawad Sayyid. For all of them and their families, increased blessings, health and safety, and increased guidance for the years to come. Please recite a very loud salawat. They requested a Surah Fatiha for the following marhumin: Sayyid Saeed Hassan Shah, Sayyid Mukhtar Hussain Shah, Nasira Mukhtar, Muhammad Ahmad Durrani, Sayyid Mushtaq Hussain. And for the marhumin of all of those present, please recite a Surah Fatiha preceded by salawat. That concludes today's program. We will have dinner downstairs in the banquet hall. I would ask our Baitul Ilm community members to guide our guests from the Ismaili and Dawoodi Bohra Jamaat downstairs. Also, we have arrangements for about 50 people here upstairs for men. I would request our elders to not have to go down the stairs, and for some of our guests and especially our speakers to join us over here. And I am very sorry. The one thing Maulana Faizi told me to do, I didn't, and I am extremely sorry about that. The most important thing I was supposed to do was to thank all of our guests from the Ismaili Jamaat and from the Dawoodi Bora Jamaat for joining us, and especially for their leaders and for their speakers. We thank you very much for joining us, and I express my heartfelt gratitude for coming and joining us so that we could all gain in the blessings of learning about and being under the auspicious occasion of the birth of Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. We will return to the masjid at 6:40 p.m. for Maghrib and Isha prayer. So please go down, enjoy the food, enjoy each other's companies. Thank you very much.